What's up? It's Debbie and I am back with more True Crimes of Criminal Minds. Today we are talking about Season 1, Episode 8, Natural Born Killer, and the hitman, Charles Harrelson. Stay tuned. I need subscribers. I have told y'all about my favorite true crime book. It is chock full of articles about crimes. It's in categories. So there's a chapter on children who kill. There's a chapter on crimes against women. There's a chapter of mobsters. There's a chapter on arson. There's a chapter on neurochemistry. There's a chapter on police methods. It's so much. There's a chapter on the history of crime. It is a very, very good book. And I want to buy you a copy. But to do that, you have to subscribe. When I get to 100 subscribers, I will be randomly selecting one of you to win this book. Good luck. Okay guys, this episode is not one of my favorites. I tend to not enjoy organized crime type episodes or shows, with the exception of the new Law and Order organized crime. That show is amazing. But I get tense and uptight anytime anybody is undercover. I don't know if that's why I don't care for this episode, but I'm just not crazy about it, and I can't quite figure out why. There's another one that's an organized crime one later on that I kind of feel the same way about. The episode starts off with two guys in a bar. As they're leaving, they pass a cop, and the cop says, "Hey Jimmy, where have you been?" You know what? I'm just gonna show you. It's easier.
Jimmy, hey, where you been?
With your old lady. How about you? Who's your friend? What friend? This guy pinched me a few years back.
Right. You keeping it clean these days?
Oh yeah, I'm a 9 to 5 minimum wage. I am rehabilitated.
Yeah. But you'll step out of line again. When you do, your ass is mine.
Oh. Since when are you friends with God? Oh, we see my friends, do you? That's not what I'm saying. The people that I work for are very hardcore. They're all in here. You don't trust me, Freddie?
Okay, so that is how the episode starts. The blonde guy, Jimmy, he is an undercover FBI agent for the Organized Crime Task Force in Baltimore. They go to Richie's house. Richie says, "Come in, my aunt is fixing dinner, and she'd be happy to have you." And he says, "No, I need to go." So he goes home, but then he starts to think, I've been made. This is bad. I don't think Richie believed me when I said this guy was not my friend. So then in the next scene, we hear music blaring out of the house, and a lady furiously walking down the sidewalk, angry to go knock on the door and tell them it's the middle of the night, the music is too loud. And Jimmy comes running out of the house covered in blood. He knocks her down and gets her all covered with blood too. And he becomes a suspect. She gives a description to an artist, and they actually get an artist rendering of what he looks like. So now they're looking for him as the suspect. Richie is nowhere to be found. Richie is found, unfortunately not alive, in another location. So, for some reason that I'm unsure of, the BAU takes this case. It's in Baltimore, which is very close to Quantico, so they don't have to fly. So they're out in the field investigating back to the office, back and forth. And they're at the office, they've started investigating it, and an FBI from Baltimore shows up. And he says, "We really appreciate you coming out to our neck of the woods yesterday, but this is our case, we've got it handled, we can take it from here." So Gideon shakes his hand and says, "Okay, you know where we live, if you need us, just let us know." And they parted ways, everything was fine. And then someone said, "So, are we dropping the case?" And Gideon's like, "No, we're not dropping the case." So they're continuing to investigate this. As they continue to investigate, they realize that this man is an undercover FBI agent and that something is hinky. So then the next day, the FBI agent from Baltimore comes back again, storms into Hotch's office and says, "I told you to stay out of my case." And Hotch said, "You don't tell us what cases we work. We're doing all that we can to find Jimmy." And the FBI agent says, "To find Jimmy, you don't have him?" Because he thought they'd pick Jimmy up as a suspect in the murder. And the FBI agent says, "You don't have him?" And Hotch says, "No, we don't have him. You don't know where he is?" He says, "No, I don't know where he is. He called for a pickup, and I told him to hang tight for 24 hours. Then when we got there, he wasn't there." So the rest of the episode, they're looking for Jimmy, who is now in the hands of a hitman, who is actually a serial killer who likes to torture his victims. The crime scene where Richie's family was murdered was horrific. That is not what a hitman does. A hitman comes in as quietly as they can, kills people, gets paid for it, and moves on to the next job. This guy is a bona fide serial killer, and he has the perfect job for a serial killer of being a hitman. So eventually they keep on and they finally find him. Yada yada, same old, happy ending. Not one of my favorites, and I'm not sure why. Let me know down in the comments if you like this episode and your thoughts on it, or on any organized crime episode of any show for that matter. It is just so nerve-wracking for me to watch somebody undercover. I used to watch Covert Affairs, which was a show about a spy for the CIA. And I used to get so nervous and anxious and worked up when she went undercover. It just drives me nuts. There's no way that I could ever be an undercover agent. I'm a terrible liar, and I'm too nervous. Moving on. Charles Harrelson. This is a case that I learned of many years ago, and I only learned a portion of it. There is a City Confidential episode about it, and it's called Maximum John. And for those of you who can get the Roku channel, it's free on there. It was season 4, episode 7. The reason it's called Maximum Justice is because a federal judge was killed by the hitman Charles Harrelson, and his nickname was Maximum John. His name was John Wood Jr. So, City Confidential was one of the very first true crime shows I started watching. American Justice and City Confidential. Every single day in syndication I watched. Back before we had streaming and binging, this was my binge. Every day I watched hours of City Confidential and American Justice in syndication. So I saw this episode years ago, and I looked it up and I watched it again, and it only covers the judge's murder. So I dug deeper and I found the other 2 murders that he supposedly did. Although Charles Harrelson said there were many, many more, these are the 3 that they know of. My sources for this was Wikipedia, City Confidential, IMDb.com, ElPasoTimes.com, History.com, NewYorkTimes.com, Vocal.media, and AVoiceForMen.com. And I do not like that website. It's full of misogynist crap. But it did give me the most information on these other two murders of any other website that I looked at. Charles Harrelson was born on July 23rd, 1938 in Lovelady, Texas. He was a professional gambler, a career criminal, a drug addict, a salesman, and a hitman. In 1960, he was arrested for armed robbery and served a stint in prison for that. He was married and had 3 sons, and he left his family in 1968. In 1969, he was hired by Frank DeMaria to kill Alan Harry Berg. Now, Alan Berg was a carpet salesman, and he worked for his father. He was also a gambler. He owed DeMaria $7,000. He paid Harrelson $2,000 to kill Alan Harry Berg. The way they lured him away from the carpet store is the most absurd story I've ever heard. I'm not discounting it, I'm just saying it's weird. Charles Harrelson's girlfriend, Sandra Sue, called Alan Berg on the phone and asked him to meet her somewhere for oral sex. Now, I don't know anybody that will pick up a phone and then go meet a stranger for oral sex. That whole thing, I don't understand it. Maybe he already knew her somehow. I don't get it. Anyway, that's how they lured him away from the carpet store. So he met her. Then Charles Harrelson kidnapped him. They drove him out to a remote area, and Sandra Sue says she just thought that Chuck, what Charles Harrelson went by, Chuck, that Chuck was just going to rough him up. And she heard a gunshot. When they finally caught up to him and arrested him, he went to trial and he was acquitted. So he was not found guilty of the murder of Alan Harry Berg. Now, Alan Berg's brother, David Berg, wrote a book called Run, Brother, Run. And in that book, he says that his brother was killed to spite their dad. That there was some kind of a bad business deal, and instead of going after their dad, who was the source of the bad business deal, they killed his son to punish him that way. So I don't know which of these are true. I don't know if they're both true in part or if it's one or the other. And I couldn't find any confirmation. But that supposedly are the two possible motives for this hit. He was acquitted in September 1970. So after that happened, Pete Scamardo, who was a drug lord, went to Mexico and got some heroin. And Charles Harrelson was supposed to sell it for him in Texas. But Scamardo changed his mind and told him, no, go sell it in Kansas City. So he went to Kansas City and he got arrested and had to ditch the heroin. And this is another thing I don't understand. There's a lot I don't understand in this story. I have questions. But he got arrested and had to get rid of the heroin. Not that he got arrested for selling heroin. Because the police would have confiscated it if they had arrested him for selling it. And apparently he didn't serve any jail time. So I don't know what he was arrested for. I mean, it could have been anything, I guess, and he ditched the heroin so he wouldn't get the heroin charge on top of whatever they did arrest him for. Anyway, since he lost Pete Scamardo's heroin, he owed him a favor. Pete Scamardo had a business partner. His name was Sam Deglia Jr. He paid Harrelson $2,000 to kill Sam Deglia Jr. And $2,000 must have been the going rate for a hit back then. I don't know, because both of the people that he was supposed to hit got paid $2,000 for. So Sam Deglia Jr. was Pete Scamardo's business partner. He had an insurance policy out on him because people that jointly own businesses, sometimes they take out insurance on each other, so if something happens to one of them, they don't lose the business. And in this case, the insurance was for $100,000. So by Harrelson killing Sam Deglia Jr., Pete Scamardo would get $100,000. This one, he did get found guilty for. He had 2 trials. The first one, it was a hung jury. 11 guilty, 1 not guilty. Second trial, he got convicted and was sentenced to 15 years, which he only served 5 of because he got out for good behavior. After he got out of prison, he went to Las Vegas. He was a professional gambler, and there was a poker tournament. In Las Vegas, he met Jimmy Chagra, another drug lord, who lived at Caesar's Palace in the Sinatra Suite. This man ran drugs from Colombia to Florida. He had been arrested by the DEA for cocaine trafficking. And he hired Charles Harrelson to kill federal judge John Wood Jr. because Judge Wood was so hard on drug offenses. His nickname was Maximum John, and he gave the maximum sentence for drug convictions, and Chagra would have got life in prison had he been tried in Judge Wood's court. Chagra refused a plea deal, and his trial was set for May 29th, 1980. For some reason that I could not find, if you guys know it or can find it, let me know in the comments. The trial got postponed to July. On the morning of May 29th, the day that he would have gone to trial, Judge Wood came out of his house and noticed that he had a flat tire. He bent down to check the tire, and he was shot in the back, severing his spine, and he died instantly. Jimmy Chagra, in prison, awaiting trial. His cellmate was a government snitch, so they got information from him. They bugged the visitor room because they knew that his brother was in on the conspiracy. Joe Chagra was a lawyer, but he was not Jimmy's lawyer. He was Jimmy's brother, so there was no confidentiality. So they bugged the visitor room, they heard the conversation, and they knew that they had hired Charles Harrelson. Now they needed to actually hear it from the horse's mouth. So they offered Joe Chagra a plea deal. He took a plea deal for 10 years, as long as he did not have to testify against his brother. He did not testify against Jimmy. He did testify against Charles Harrelson. So because Joe would not testify against Jimmy, Jimmy did not get found guilty of the judge's murder. He did, however, get 30 years in prison for the drug trafficking. And the judge that was on his trial, not only was he a pallbearer at Judge Wood's funeral, he gave the eulogy. The courthouse that the case was tried in was renamed John Wood Jr. Courthouse. Ultimately, Jimmy Chagra got what he wanted by killing the judge. He did not get life in prison. He only got 30 years. So the cops are trying to find Harrelson, and they get an anonymous call that there's gunshots. So they go out to where the gunshots were heard, and Charles Harrelson was high on cocaine and shooting at shadows that he thought were FBI agents. There was a 6-hour standoff with the police. During that 6-hour standoff, he said all kinds of things. He threatened to commit suicide. He admitted to killing Judge Wood, and he also admitted to killing President Kennedy. Joe Chagra testified against Charles Harrelson that he was the hitman, and also that Harrelson had told him that he killed President Kennedy and had shown him a map of where they were hiding in Dealey Plaza that day. Chagra did not believe him. Harrelson's defense was that he didn't shoot the judge. He just told Jimmy he was going to get the money. And that is the most unbelievable story ever. Unless you have a death wish, you're not going to try to rip off a drug lord's money. So, I don't believe that. And the jury didn't either. Harrelson got 2 life sentences. One for conspiracy to commit murder and one for murder. His wife, Joanne, got 25 years on a combination of charges of conspiracy and perjury related to the assassination. At the crime scene, they found fragments from a .240 caliber Weatherby Mark V rifle that was purchased by Joanne just days before the murder. She was later paroled. In a television interview, Charles Harrelson said this, quote, "At the same time I said I killed a judge, I said I killed President Kennedy, which might give you an idea of my state of mind at the time. It was an effort to elongate my life," unquote. I don't know how he thought that was going to elongate his life, unless he thought they would investigate him for the murder of Kennedy. But the case is already closed, because they say that Lee Harvey Oswald was a lone gunman. So, I don't know what he was thinking, but he wasn't thinking straight, at any rate, because he was high on cocaine at the time. There's a 1989 book called CROSSFIRE, and it was written by James Mars, and in it, he says that Harrelson is believed to be the youngest and tallest of the 3 tramps that were at Dealey Plaza that day. I know very little about the Kennedy assassination. To be honest with you, most of what I know is from the Stephen King book. He was assassinated in '63. I wasn't even born yet. But I do know about the magic bullet theory, and that can't be right, because physics doesn't change. There had to be a second gunman. And that's all I know. I don't consider myself to be a conspiracy theorist or anything, but I do believe in science, and the physics of a bullet traveling do not do that. So that's another discussion for another time, unless you want to pop some comments down there to let me know what you think. Did Charles Harrelson kill President Kennedy? Mars also stated that Harrelson had connections to criminal and military organizations and was also in contact with Jack Ruby. FBI discounted him having anything to do with President Kennedy's assassination. On July 4th, 1995, Independence Day, Harrelson and 2 other inmates decided to escape from the facility in Atlanta. And they fashioned a makeshift rope out of something, it doesn't say, and tried to climb the wall. There was a warning shot from the guard tower, and they surrendered. So they never really escaped. I guess technically it is an escaped attempt, but they never got off the ground. Then he was sent to Florence ADX in Colorado, which is the most secure prison in America. In 2003, Jimmy Chagra recanted and said, no, Charles Harrelson did not kill Judge Wood for me. So, Charles Harrelson has a famous son, Woody Harrelson. Charles Harrelson left the family when Woody was 7 years old. So, he doesn't really know his dad. He didn't keep track of his dad. He didn't know anything about his dad until 1981 when this trial happened. He got back in touch with his dad, and this is what he had to say about his dad. Quote, still, just now, I'm gauging whether or not he merits my friendship or loyalty, unquote. So that's what he had to say about his dad. But in 2003, when Jimmy Chagra recanted and said that Harrelson had not killed the judge, Woody used his money to try to get him a new trial. Woody funded his appeals, was on his side, didn't believe that he killed the judge, and he tried to get him another trial. He hired Alan Dershowitz, and if that name sounds familiar, he represents celebrities and the wealthy. He was an attorney for Klaus von Bülow, Mike Tyson, Donald Trump, O.J. Simpson, Leona Hemsley, Jim Baker, and many more. But they're all high-profile people. So Woody, being a high-profile person, hired him to get his dad another trial, and he was unsuccessful. Harrelson died of a heart attack in his jail cell on March 15, 2007. He was 69 years old. So that's it. That's the story of Charles Harrelson, the hitman, and Woody Harrelson's father. And please subscribe. Let's get you in that giveaway for that true crime book. Like, share, hit the bell for notifications so you know when my next episode drops. And I will see you later. Bye, guys. Take it easy. Did you think I forgot? I didn't forget. Here you go. Here's the sneak peek that I promised you. Criminal Minds is getting a new name. It is now going to be called Criminal Minds Evolution. And I don't know if Evolution is just the label that they're giving for the 16th season, the 10-episode arc, or if it's for from here on out. It could be that they're going to change it every season, and it's going to be Criminal Minds something. The second piece of info that I have is that there is a new cast member. His name is Zach Gilford. He was on Friday Night Lights. I never watched Friday Night Lights, so I don't know this actor. But he is going to play the big bad, the unsub that put together the serial killer network during the pandemic. So he's going to be rearing his ugly head throughout the 10 episodes. I don't know. Hopefully that makes some of you happy. I have no opinion either way because I've never heard of this guy before. So also let me know what you think about that down in the comments. Like, I'm not sure about why they need to change the name. I'm not poo-pooing it. I just don't see the reason. I don't know. Maybe I'll figure it out when the show comes back on. That is all the reboot info I have. And I will burp.